aside, what we're going to do in this live class is IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. We're going to focus on grammar. And specifically, I'm going to just show you what Band 9 grammar looks like. Okay, so the other day when I took the IELTS, this is what I saw on my test paper. I was faced with 3 different line graphs. Okay, I had not prepared for 3 different line graphs. I didn't even know it was possible to get 3 different line graphs. But anyway, it was confronting. The one thing that I'm good at is grammar. I have no problem with grammar, right? Native speaker, but also I've been teaching grammar for a long time. So I'm very aware of how grammar works, and it is very mysterious and very confusing. Cool. So the mission for this class is for you to see accurate grammar in use, okay? By the way, if you need help with your grammar for IELTS or PTE or OET or TOEFL, go to YouTube and search E2 Learn English because we have grammar lessons piling up there. Before we begin, I want to tell you about how you're scored because that's what matters. And if you know how you're scored, you can write your description in a way that will satisfy the examiners. So you're scored on 4 things. Firstly, you're scored on your description, okay? Which means, did you describe those 3 line graphs? And did you describe them accurately? And did you write about the important information in those 3 line graphs, for example? Second thing you're scored on is structure. Did you have a summary sentence, a description, and did you also compare data? And did you do this in a way where it flowed very beautifully from beginning to end? The third thing you're scored on is vocabulary. And really, this is about being precise, using precise vocabulary. And the fourth thing is grammar. And this is about accuracy. Because even little mistakes, like if you make a mistake with the, and you write for example, or you write no article, that's going to be a problem, okay? So what we're going to do is focus on this one here, grammar. The first thing I want to look at are verbs. I want to look at verbs because, first of all, every sentence in English has a verb, but verbs are the most important part of the sentence. They kind of hold the sentence together. They usually sit in the middle between the subject and the object, and they're critical to get right. They're critical to get right in terms of the tense, which one you use, like present simple or present continuous or whatever. I'll show you that. They also have to be right according to the subject. So if there's one subject, it will change the verb, for example. So I'll show you that as well. Let's have a look at verbs. But before we do, in order to get the tense right, have a look at this. 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. When was this? Was this the past? Was this the present? Or was this? I'm giving it away. You can see that this is in the past. The x-axis is in the past. So that's going to do something to our verbs. It's going to make us write in such a way. For example, when we say the verb increase, but it's in 2002, we're going to have to say increased or fell. There's an irregular one. Anyway, let me show you. Let me just show you all the beautiful verbs in this writing here. Forget this one. Let's go to here first because this is past tense. So Australia's trade with China was, fluctuated, fell, not fall, that's present simple, fell, past tense, was, increased, was, increased, increased, showed, grew, there's an irregular one, plateaued, and grew again. So you can see all of these verbs, because of the x-axis is in the past, we're going to put all of our descriptions and all of our comparisons, we're going to use a simple past tense verb. I can't see any reason to use a present perfect, or it is possible. It is possible, but this particular one that I wrote only required past simple, except for this one exception I'm going to show you right at the beginning. When we write our summary, this first verb is going to be present simple. The line graphs represent, because the line graphs represented would be wrong because it's present simple. They're continuing to represent. The line graphs represent how much Australia imported and exported. Whoops, that's another verb there that I forgot to do. But you can see the ed ending. Cool. I don't want to labor that too much, but I do just want to say that you have to get your verbs right. They're extremely important. And from this example right here, while we just had two types and really just one type, the past simple. But I'll be interested to know if you're using other verbs as well. But it's about accuracy. All right. Subjects. Okay, let's get the subjects of the sentence right. Because also what you're going to find is the subject influences that verb. So the line graphs more than one. How many were there? There were three. So the line graphs represent, no S. Okay, Australia imported. Here's another subject. And you start to see the subject-verb relationship here. The line graphs represent Australia imported. Australia's trade with China was, there's the verb, there's the subject. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 words. Both imports and exports fluctuated. Imports fell. Exports increased. Here's a different one. This is sort of irregular. There was a steady increase. So this is actually the verb before the subject, only because we're using the there was, then the subject, but forget about that one. Exports increased. Australia's trade with the USA was, imports increased, exports increased. Both imports from and exports to Japan both showed growth. Exports grew. They, here's a pronoun. I guess I'm talking about exports here because I'm saying it again. They, exports, plateaued. Imports from Japan grew. Sometimes when you're doing academic writing task 1, it's hard to know what the subject is. Okay, let's just quickly go back and look at those graphs, because once you know what the subject's going to be, then it makes your life a lot easier, because you're just going to go subject verb. It won't always be that simple. There might be an adverb or something like that, but you need to know what the subject is. Okay, so you look at this graph here, the trade with China. So we've got imports and exports. Now, they would make excellent subjects. What would not make a good subject is 2002. What would not make a good subject is $5 billion. Because basically the subject does something. The subject does, that's the verb. The subject does something. So if we say imports, well, what did imports do? Well, let's look at the blue line. Imports did what? Well, they decreased, or they plummeted, or they fell. And then from here, what did imports do? That's the subject, imports. Well, they grew steadily. If we look over here with actually, let's think about trade with the USA as the subject, because that would be a good overall. If we're generally describing this, trade with the USA overall increased. Trade with the USA as the subject increased. But then you can go to the specific subject of imports and exports. And what did they do? Well, increased, decreased, fell, plummeted, fluctuated, you name it, you choose your verb. That's how it works. Subjects. So, yes, cool. Next one. This is related to subjects. And this is one that, well, a lot of people get wrong. And this is articles. But the good thing to know about articles In academic writing task 1, well, for my one, there were very few. I have up here, I have the line graphs, because we're referring to specific line graphs, those 3 line graphs, the line graphs, and we're referring to more than one. A steady increase, an increase, a steady increase. The USA, well, that's just because it's the USA, it's a specific place. It's just a name, like the UK or the USA. A high, increase to a high. So really, I've only got 4 articles here that I could find. Anyway, they're hard to spot sometimes. The, and But here's the thing with articles is, when do you not use an article? Well, let's look at that as well, because that's just as important for accuracy. Look here at the word Japan. We don't say both imports from and exports to the Japan. No, it's not the Japan, it's just Japan. Or here, why don't we just say both the imports from and the exports to? Both the and the. Well, this is where, to be perfectly honest with you, this is where articles become kind of crazily difficult. Anyway, check out E2 Learn English in YouTube. Type that in. There's heaps of lessons there about grammar for IELTS, TOEFL, PT, OET. Cool. Let's push on though. Adjectives. This, when you're doing writing task 2 and you're writing your essay, you will use a lot more adjectives than I have used here in my academic description, because it's a description, it should use adjectives, but it doesn't really. It's really, academic writing task 1 is about subjects, verbs, and to a lesser extent, adverbs, which I'll show you next. But nevertheless, I've used some adjectives. But when you're doing writing task 2, you will use a lot more adjectives, and you'll use really quite sophisticated adjectives. But let's look at this one here. So, well, Australian is an adjective because there's the noun that it's describing, Australian dollars, or it could be Japanese or Chinese or American. Okay, I've got an adjective here, erratic. It was quite erratic. I've got a steady increase, increase. There's the noun. Here's the adjective, a steady increase. Okay, I've said here that Australia's trade with the USA was consistent. That's a nice adjective. Here it's close to. Close is an adjective. Both is an adjective. And here, right down the bottom, I've also got a steady increase. So I've got some nice ones, but very few. I've got erratic, consistent, steady. They're nice adjectives. These words are important for your writing task 1. Really important. Now, this is very colorful, so just bear with me while I explain what these crazy orange words are doing. So I'm saying that I could say that Australia's trade with China was erratic, but instead I sort of decreased the intensity and said it was quite erratic. I could have said it was really erratic or extremely erratic, but it wasn't. So what these words allow us to do is increase or decrease the intensity of an adjective or a verb. We can say it was, you know, the difference between the imports fluctuated slightly, or the imports fluctuated erratically. Usually these adverbs have the ly ending. They're important here for accuracy. They allow us to be very precise about our descriptions. Okay, let's look at a few more. So we've got quite erratic. Here we've got imports fell from approximately 4.3 billion. What we're doing here is, if you remember the graphs, it wasn't, you couldn't see exactly how much money the exports were or the imports were, but so we can hedge our bets, and we can say it was approximately or around $2.2 million or nearly 4.5 million. around again, nearly, around, just over. Okay, then we've got some different ones. So these ones, around, approximately, nearly, just over, these are different ways of saying, well, approximately or close to, or they allow us to, because we can't be exactly precise, they allow us to say that and the examiner will go, okay, that's good enough. That's as close as you can get, okay? Now there's a few more here. Let me get rid of my red pen here. Okay, so decreasing slightly. What else have we got here? Again, grew slightly. And finally, we have this one here, similarly, but that's kind of a different one that I'll show you in a second. All right, if we're talking about precision and accuracy and writing a really high scoring band 9 response, your prepositions have to be right. They have to be correct. These are difficult because they really don't have any meaning. Prepositions don't have meaning. What they do is they just create grammatical sentences. So what you have to do is you have to just memorize them according to what they're doing. It's kind of strange. Let me show you. Okay, it's getting very colorful, but please look at the purple ones here. Okay. The line graphs represent how much Australia imported from and exported to. Okay, so you import from Japan and you export to China, right? Again, here's another verb preposition, fell from. A steady increase to a number, increased from. Okay, in 2002 to nearly $4.5 billion. In 2003, before dropping to, there's a phrase, in 2005, in 2004, at around $2.75 billion, at dollars. Crazy, right? Trade with, increased from, just above $1.5 billion in 2002 to close to $2.5 billion in 2004 before decreasing. In 2005, here's a phrase, in comparison, increased from, before falling to. You can see there's just, well, I mean, I've just used ones like in, from, with, to, of, before. I haven't used any crazy ones. They're all very common, but you need to know how they're used. And I could sit here all day and explain it to you. The best way is to read good sample essays and see how the writer, like sample essays from E2 language, for example, see how the writer has used these prepositions to bring all of those sentences together and to show relationships and to show where, when, simple things like this. So it's tricky stuff. It's tricky stuff. Prepositions are hard to get right. Okay, then, well, I'm probably a bit guilty for not using many linking words. A lot of IELTS teachers will tell you that you must use words like however and therefore and as a result and moreover and these types of linking words. You probably should, because IELTS examiners like them. Me personally, I think IELTS students overuse them, and one thing you need to be careful of is only using a linking word if it is correct or accurate or does the job that you want it to do. You can't just throw in a however or throw in a therefore. It has to serve a purpose, okay? So let's have a look at the purpose of these linking words here. And we're going to start with then. I'm going to leave this one. It's a bit different. Okay, so this happened, then this happened. That's fine. That works. Or what we can say here is, imports increased. In comparison, exports, oh, that should say decreased, I guess. My fault, my bad, because that's what comparing does. Because you have one side will increase, the other side will decrease. Or what's a better word? In contrast, in comparison? It's okay, actually. Let me explain why I did do that, and it's probably still right. So we have two of these which can be used. Here I'm just comparing. That's okay. I can say increased and increased. The one that you need to be careful of is this one, in contrast, because with in comparison, I can say that this one increased, and in comparison, this one increased even more. But when you're using in contrast, you have to say this one increased, but this in contrast, this one decreased. Okay, so you can use in comparison for increase and increase, or decrease and decrease, but this one, it has to show the opposite. So I'm actually right there, and luckily I've just corrected myself and saved my integrity as a teacher. Similarly, this is a nice one. Similarly, okay, so this increased by, let's say, by $2 billion. And similarly, the imports increased by $2 billion, whatever it is, okay? That's a nice way to connect two things that are doing the same thing similarly, in comparison, then, and this one is a bit of a phrase. In fact, when you look at the IELTS, the way the IELTS examiners look at your writing and grammar specifically, they look at what's called collocations, or natural sounding language. So it's not, basically what you're not doing is translating from your language into English. What you need to do is you need to write like a native speaker. And to do that, you have to use particular word combinations, like an adjective noun combination or a verb preposition combination, that sound right, that are commonly used, for example. So let's look at these natural sounding phrases. So here is the one I showed you before in terms of, it's just a phrase, quite erratic, a steady increase, more consistent, decreasing slightly, in comparison, showed growth, grew slightly, and again, a steady increase. So what have we got here? Well, here we've got an adverb adjective combination. Here we've got an article adjective noun. This is a noun, this is an adjective. So that this describes that noun, a steady increase. Again, adjective more consistent. This is one of those adjectives like happy, happier, happiest. But when you have the three syllables, you can't say consistenter, consistentest. More consistent is a nicer way to say that, or the only way. Decreasing slightly, in comparison, showed growth, etc. This one is verb noun. If you're seeing me make mistakes, by the way, feel free to type into the comments below. While you're there, if you're on YouTube, please click like, share this video around, and click that little red button to subscribe so you can watch these videos as soon as we release them. You'll be notified on your mobile phone. You can spend quality time on the bus watching this instead of watching cat videos, which would be a good thing. Cool, we're nearly finished, guys. Let's just recap what we have looked at in this lesson. Well, we learned that you're scored on 4 things. You're scored on your quality of your description, whether you actually described all those features of the graphs. You're scored on the structure, whether you had a summary, a description, and compared the data and how well you sequenced this. You're scored on your vocabulary in terms of its precision. And finally, what we looked at in this one was grammar. So how accurate your grammar was. And we looked at verbs. We looked at subjects, which influence those verbs. We looked at articles. Remember the articles. We looked at some adjectives. I only had a few. You don't need to fill your writing with adjectives. Importantly, we looked at adverbs, slightly, approximately, words like this. We looked at some hard ones like prepositions. They were tough. They're the ones that Yeah, well, do check out that E2 Learn English YouTube channel. What else did we look at? Then we looked at natural sounding phrases and linking words. So all of these rules combine to create a high scoring academic writing task 1. I've already told you about this. Now, if you're interested, we're going to run some writing intensive live classes. Who wants to go to an English language school and drive across the city in the middle of the night and you're tired, you've just finished work? Forget that. We've got something much more interesting happening at the moment. Starting on the 6th of November, and if you're watching this video after then, don't worry, this will be happening again and again. We're going to be running a live class intensive for 1 week. In that 1 week or 5 days before the big IELTS exam, we're going to be looking at IELTS Academic Writing Task 1 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Line graphs, pie charts, tables, processes, and the other one, I've forgotten it, but bar charts. We'll also be looking at writing task 2. So on Monday, we'll do problem solution. Tuesday, advantages, disadvantages. Wednesday, discussion. Thursday, double question. And Friday, we'll do the other one, which I've forgotten. We're also, if you're IELTS General, we'll also look at the 3 different letter types. And we'll also look in this intensive course at IELTS reading, and we'll go through all the different question types. So when you're there on test day and you see true, false, not given, you know exactly what to do, what to look for. These will all be live. This will be part of the package that you purchase through E2 Language, which will also give you access to all the content on the website, plus a PDF that you can download and print, bring to the live classes and write your essays, write your academic writing task 1. So if you're interested in that, sign up to E2 Language as a free user. We'll send you an email, or if you're a paid user, you will automatically be entered, assisted, allowed into these live classes. Cool. Anyway, so do check out that website there. That's all from me. Right now, we'll go to Q&A, and I'll answer some questions that you have. All right, let me answer some of these questions. I'm sorry you didn't get to do much in this one. I just wanted to show you, just so you'll be aware. Okay, don't you think more consistent? Okay, needs a thing to compare against. That's a good question. Let me have a look. Where was that? Natural sounding phrases, more consistent. Okay. This is a good point. Somebody's pointed out here that I've used this phrase here, more consistent, without comparing it to something. Now, sometimes it's just implied. It's implied that it's comparing against this. You don't need to say it explicitly. You can. I could have said Australia's trade with the USA was more consistent than its trade with China. That's probably better in some ways, certainly more comprehensive, but I don't really need to do it. It's just implied that it's comparing against China here. So that's a good question. Jay, what time does the intensive course take place? That's a good question. So we think academic writing task 1 will be at 6 p.m. Melbourne, Sydney time. Academic writing task 2 will be at 7:30 p.m. Melbourne, Sydney time. And general and reading will be at 9 p.m. Melbourne, Sydney time. Is a good question. Relating back to academic writing task 1, do we need to write a conclusion for our writing task 1? The answer is no. If you're below the word count, then you can write another summary, just capturing the main points, but there's nothing to conclude. We're not concluding. You conclude when you write an essay and you bring together all your points and you say, to conclude, I believe that this. Academic writing task 1 is a description. It doesn't require a conclusion. All you're doing is summarizing, describing, and comparing. That's all you do. Okay, here's a great question from Sheng. Jay, how many times are we allowed to repeat words like increased? Okay, this is a really good question. Increased. Let me show you something. I wish I could make this bigger. I'm going to show you this anyway. This is my dictionary. So here's the thesaurus, rather, for increase: grow, get bigger, get larger, become greater, enlarge, expand, swell, rise, climb, escalate, soar, surge, rocket, shoot up, spiral, improve, intensify. Okay, there are lots of synonyms for a word like increase, but using one like rocket is not the right context. So you can't use rocket. You can't use get larger. That doesn't make sense. You can't use the word improve because that's like an opinion. All you're doing is describing, remember. You can use one like climb. So exports climbed in 2007, or rose. So when you're choosing synonyms to use, and you should, just make sure they're correct. I probably could have used a few more synonyms, but I just feel that increase is the one that's right. Imports rose. Yeah, I probably could have used the word rise. I'll tell you what's good for increase. Rise, climb. Even climb's a bit not quite right because it's kind of personifying it. It's not right. I think rise and increase and grow. I think those three are really the only three you should use. And when it comes to decrease, well, my computer's not working, so we can't do that. All right, let's look at some other questions. Here's a question. Jay, how can we know our weakness or strength? You need to get feedback. One of the things that the IELTS doesn't do, which is really frustrating, is they give you your report and they say, you got 6.5 in writing. And you think, well, why? What did I do wrong? But you don't know. You need an expert to tell you. And that's one of the things we do at E2 Language is we examine, we analyze your writing, and we give you feedback. So you may need that. Iggy, can we describe the x-axis okay, here's the x-axis. No, you don't need to describe, you don't need to label the graph. The IELTS examiner knows what the graph is. You're describing the graph. It's different to labeling the graph. You don't say the line graph has an x-axis. The x-axis represents billions of dollars. Sorry, the y-axis represents billions of dollars. The x-axis represents years. You don't do that. There's no need to label the graph. You're describing the data in the graph. The IELTS examiner knows what the graph is and what the x and y axis are. Inclined, 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 increase it. Exports inclined. No, that's wrong. That's not precise. It's not precise. Usually we inclined. I could give you a definition of inclined, but it's not the same as increased. As a transitive verb with an object, make someone disposed to. No. Yeah, you can't say the export's inclined. No. You can say declined. You can say declined, but you can't say inclined. Don't ask me why. This is crazy stuff. Good questions tonight. Thank you for these questions. They're great. Okay, somebody's got a good point here. The overview carries a lot of points. Please teach us how to write a good overview in Task 1 overall. Well, I think they all carry good points, but I think that summary sentence, I'm worried about mine. I took the IELTS 10 days ago just for fun. My summary wasn't great. I'm worried about it. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Cool. think that's all. What's going on YouTube, by the way? I'm neglecting you people because you're on YouTube. You should be in the live class with me so I can pay attention to you. Okay, there's too many questions. Guys, I might leave it there, actually. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to sign up to E2 Language so you can get notified about our live class intensive schedule for writing and reading. If you're on YouTube, do subscribe. That's all. If you have any questions, you can email hello@e2language.com. Cool. Thanks very much for coming. I'll see you all soon.